Very good. It's 2:30, so we will begin the Liquor Control Committee meeting for today. We have two items on the agenda. Number one is to review possible liquor violations. 1A, determine possible liquor violations for the Old Broadway, employment of minors in a liquor establishment in a non-excluded capacity, and failure to have staff server trained. With that, Steve Sprague will get us started.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, board members, for making time to come here for this meeting. This special meeting is to talk about a couple of different license violations or potential license violations. And this came to this Old Broadway incident came to our attention through an incident that occurred at Old Broadway where the doorman I guess assaulted a person, and through that process, we, of discovery, found out who those people were that were employed, and in that regard, found that one of the people was under 21 years of age. And then doing further background checks, we also discovered that that person had not secured their server training. So I want to call out a couple of sections in the ordinance in 25-1501, where we talk about mandatory server training in the definitions. We say that it applies to, but is not limited to, managers, servers, security, bartenders, and door attendants, or any people or any employees in the capacity to determine compliance with applicable laws. And then further in 25-1511, we speak to mandatory server training as being required by all persons participating in the stream of alcohol service of alcoholic beverages. Excuse me. So those are the two sections that show that we require the server training. In 25-1509 is where we list the excluded jobs where people that are allowed to work in the alcohol industry that are not required to have server training or be of 21 years of age. And in there we talk about food waiter, food waitress, busboy, busgirl, and those are the only definitions that are called out in the ordinance as far as positions that are allowed to be under 21 years of age. And that's all I have on those items.
And so the process, I don't know if you want to have anybody else speak and then to give the Old Broadway a chance to speak too. Is that how we'll proceed?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody from the Old, if you want to speak, you can at this time. If you don't mind giving your name and introducing yourself, come on up to that podium.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Warren Ackley, and I've been the manager and owner of the Old Broadway Food and Beverage Company for 46 years. And this is my first hearing at the Liquor Control Board due to a violation of liquor license requirements. So a little nervous about that. So first time here is a little extraordinary for me. With that being said, however, we have always been in compliance with all state and city liquor laws throughout the history of the Old Broadway. In this isolated incident, we did have one individual who signed up to take server training and chose not to complete the training. Our procedures were not followed, and new procedures are now in place to ensure that this will not happen in the future. In regards to employing the person who is under 21 as a door person, the code does not state provisions for door persons, nor does it state provisions for cooks, dishwashers, expediters, or barbacks. There is zero guidance on regulations requiring any of these jobs, which are performed in every restaurant in Fargo, other than to say a person cannot mix or dispense alcoholic beverages as they are under 21. So that is in the code. But these jobs are away from the bar itself. And again, cooks, dishwashers, door persons are not involved in direct service or mixing of alcohol. A door person is not at any time engaged in the sale of, mixing of, dispensing of, or delivery of alcoholic beverages. They are only outside of entrances or in the entryways of the property, which is away from the bar itself. Door persons are always under the direct supervision of individuals who is 21 years of age or more. The Old Broadway Food and Beverage Company has always operated as a restaurant with alcoholic beverages for sale. We have employed cooks, dishwashers, expediters, door persons, and cleaning people throughout the years. This code I feel, needs to clarify these positions as well, because all restaurants that serve alcohol will be in violation without these named positions in the code. The Old Broadway is a restaurant open until 2 a.m. with food served throughout the facility. The wording of the code is somewhat antiquated and ambiguous at best. I have not used the term busgirl or waitress, probably in 40 years, maybe. So that's an issue. There are no provisions in the code relating to checking identifications, other than it is conceivable that you could have a 14-year-old busgirl or an 18-year-old waitress would handle all checking of identification before an 18-year-old server could serve alcohol to the table. According to this code, a person under the age of 21 would have to check identification in a restaurant and serve and collect money for alcoholic beverages. So you can see the confusion that this code has caused, whereas employees under the age of 21 not involved in the sale and delivery of alcohol cannot be employed by a restaurant. So we just feel, and I just feel, that the code is somewhat ambiguous to these job positions, and door persons is one of those. And that's where we sit.
Very good. Thank you. If there's any members of the committee that have, if you don't mind, Warren, do you mind if we ask you a couple questions? So I guess to me, it's pretty clear as far as server training, it says that it's pretty clear that it applies to security, bartenders, door attendants. Would you agree with that?
I do.
So from that, so the server training part of it, it is very clear. So to me, that's a positive thing. I would agree that maybe we do need to maybe address some of these sections of the other parts to clarify that, so it's complementary. Any other questions from anybody on the committee?
Yeah, I just, in looking at some of the information provided, PJ from the Old Broadway conveyed it's a long-standing practice that if you're not serving alcohol, you don't need to be age 21. So when I read the materials, I was also of the opinion that I think the spirit of the law is that if you're serving alcohol, you got to be 21 years or older. If you're carrying dishes to and fro, you don't want to be 21. So I struggle a little bit with the under 21 complaint.
Sorry, I don't have a question for you, but I agree with much of what has already been said. I think reading this ordinance, I read it two different ways. First, initially, I read it, well, it's silent on cooks, dishwashers, things like that, so they can be employed. And then I read it again, and it clearly sets out, requirements for musicians and et cetera. So those would be the only exceptions, and they can't be employed, these door people. And so I think that's a problem with this ordinance, and I think it's something that the city should look at, and I would struggle with finding the OB in violation for this, but I agree with what was said about the server training. I mean, I think that is an issue for you, but as far as the 21 one, in my view, that ordinance needs to be cleaned up a bit.
Any other comments or questions?
Quick question, Mr. Ackley, what was the time frame between him signing up for server training and not getting it done? Was he a fairly new employee, or?
He was a new employee, he did sign up for it, and we were assuming he did take the test, but that was where the procedure lapsed on our part, so that we are at fault for that. It was over a month and a half.
Are you using the in-house training yet on the computer?
Excuse me?
Are you using the in-house on the computer training?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that started, I think, the first of the year. But prior to that, it was much harder to do. It is easier to do now for the employee, but some employees are just, and this one in particular did not take it. And those procedures, like I said, that will not happen again without a new procedure in place that we already have in place. So that was something on us.
And I guess having an under 21-year-old doorman, that would be somewhat controversial, but I agree that it doesn't look like it would be an infraction, the way I read the ordinance. And it sounds like, looking at your job description, there was really nothing in there about ever helping serve drinks to tables or make drinks or anything. You had other duties for them, like emptying garbage and, working the doors, et cetera. So I have a tough time, weighing this too. I agree that his system failed for server training, but it's an unusual instance. I'm sure you have, who knows how many employees you have over there, and like you said, 50 years of operating,
Yeah, well, I've had 7,000 employees in the 46 years just at the old Broadway, so I don't want to think I'm due for an infraction, but it's been a long run, and I do apologize for this person not taking it, and we take responsibility for that.
So Steve, can I ask, we talked a little bit about that, but now the server training is all online, and so they have the ability, but it's also on them to make sure that they are current. But so this was basically this violation occurred with the new system, correct?
That is correct, Commissioner. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The city used to hold the server training courses, and we had to have people sign up, and so we had a provision in the ordinance that allowed a grace period, if you will, for people to get in and get signed up for server training. With the change we made in the ordinance and the online availability, we put the onus on the businesses to do that. And if you remember last week at the liquor control meeting, we are now in the process of going out and doing those kind of a compliance check on that server training just to make sure that people are actually doing that taking that step.
And Warren, just a question. So now you've made a change to make sure that the employees do the online training before they start, or can you talk a little bit about that? What have you done?
Yeah, no, it's before they start. So when they sign up to get their payroll information, it's at that time that they do fill out and take the alcohol awareness information. So prior to them being paid, they would have to take that.
And so would you say, obviously we've just made that change. Are you appreciative of that? Do you think that was a good thing from our perspective?
Oh, I do. Yes.
Because it was a little bit of a challenge. We were putting them on in person, and then there was a time lag.
Yeah, prior to that, it was difficult. It was cumbersome for them, and this way, it should alleviate a lot of problems
Okay,
in the future.
very good. Very good. So we do, if it's okay, I'll read the suggested motion, and then we can have discussion after that. The suggested motion is to move to find the Old Broadway violated Fargo Municipal Code FMC 25-1511 and 25-1509 by employing a minor and not providing server training. The prescribed administrative penalty in 25-1512 is $500 for each violation. And so that's a suggested motion. We can have some discussion, but if you don't mind, so Nancy Morris is at the podium now. So if you don't mind me asking, so is there some modifications we can do to the city code to make sure that the server training rules match up with the other rules?
The server training provision does provide for it must be completed before any person participates in the stream of commerce. I wanted to call that to your attention that was a change. Now, if you're asking regarding the whether an individual at the door attendant must be 21 or not. Again, it was presented as a violation based on the terms of the ordinance. It does say that anybody under 21 shall not enter except as provided in section C and D, and those are specifically named. Those are consistent with state law, and so a change to that would we be looking at what legislation would need to change as well. So it is consistent there. I agree some of the language is antiquated, but again, we presented it as a violation for your consideration. In my opinion, it would be required to be 21.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Or, like I said, this is a suggested motion. That isn't necessarily what we have to do. So what are the wishes of our commission?
I think it's problematic in terms of some of the positions that were mentioned. I mean, I just don't see how the restaurant business can exist if it's got that minimizing language where it's limited to those certain functions, bus person, so on and so forth. I don't know what the action is that we have to do, but I mean, I think it needs to change for the good of the city and for the good of the state that, we can keep these restaurants going. It's common practice, as noted by the general manager, that people under age 21 are employed in those roles. I'd like to make a motion to find that Old Broadway violated Fargo Municipal Code by not providing server training, and whatever a one violation deal is, whatever the fine is there, $500.
So that's the motion. Do we have a second?
Question, and that means that we're going to eliminate the under 21 employees.
Yeah, that's my intent.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. So then we'll move on to number 1B, determine possible liquor license violations for the windbreak, serving obviously intoxicated or impaired persons at Fargo Municipal Code 25-1509.2. And the chief will start us out with that one.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. I've got Sergeant Eldon Golos with me here today. He's going to walk through a situation that he encountered at Windbreak as the liaison to that establishment since signing the agreement earlier in the year, which we believe to be a violation of the over-serving ordinance. And so just for some background, earlier this year, the board did approve and the commission did approve an amendment to 25-1509.2 restrictions on obviously intoxicated or impaired persons based on input that we provided to the board and the board considered in terms of the difficulties in dealing with over-intoxication issues in establishments and showing those violations to occur. That was largely due to the Windbreak's continual issue with over-intoxication issues. And through August of this year, they've had 13 over-intoxication cases from their establishment, the most by far of any other establishment in the city. And through September, they added 3 more, and they're currently at 16 for the year. And I just wanted to provide that background and then turn it over to Sergeant Golos, who can talk about the incident at hand.
Hello. Just for context, like the chief said, I've been the liaison with the Windbreak for about 1.5 years, 2 years. What that includes is obviously I don't get to go to all the calls that happen in the Windbreak, so I review a lot of all the calls for service to include the liquor forms. I review those. If there's one that sticks out that the officer comments that there might be an issue of over serving, I look at body camera. Sometimes I call the citizens and then I contact Mike, and every single time he's allowed me to watch the video at the establishment. So I physically go to the establishment and I operate their system, and I have to move cameras around. So I'm specifically looking at the person for the duration, the whole duration in this case that they're there. I'm not looking at what other people are doing per se, but just this one. So this came about because the female was arrested for a DUI outside the Windbreak. She struck a pole. As she tried to drive away, she was found by officers, was very intoxicated, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, tried to get into a different vehicle that wasn't hers. And later at the jail blew just under a .3. So she also contacted, alleging that that her drink was maybe tampered with. You'll see that that was not the case at all. I think there was some underlining trying to get out of a DUI. But regardless, I went and watched the video, and then I'll just kind of note what I observed, and feel free to ask any questions that you might have. So this happened on August 18th of this year. She shows up to the windbreak at 10:47 p.m. She goes into the front door by herself. Her ID is checked. She pays, gets a wristband, all that good stuff. So she gets her first drink at 10:55. She pays for her own drink. No issue there. I should note, when she gets to the windbreak, she appears fine. I'm looking at body language. I can't hear the audio, but I'm looking at body language, how she's moving, stuff like that. She appears fine. She's stable on her feet, walking normally. So she gets her first drink. No issues that I observed there. Takes her drink, goes dancing, other things. Gets her second drink at 11:10. She pays for this one as well. Again, no notable concerns that I saw, no issues that I saw. She's stable on her feet, walking around just fine. You'll note that in between each drink, she's talking to different people and like taking sips of their drinks. Those drinks are not tampered with. None of her drinks were tampered with. And I would equate all of those drinks as like one total drink that she's taking sips from other people. At about 11:31, hang on. So at 11:37, one of the windbreak employees, I believe, was one of the managers. He walks her from like the smoking area to the bar area and makes her a large, tall glass. I can't tell what it is exactly, but it's what they would put beer in, but it's not beer. It's either a mixed drink or liquor, straight liquor, and it's a tall glass drink of that. He gives her that for free. So she goes back to dancing, talking to people in the pool area. Again, I'm not observing any issues at this point. So about 10 minutes later at 11:47, she's in the pool area, orders another drink that a gentleman pays for her. So when this happens, the waitress brought her the drink, and she had a drink in her hand already. I don't know if that makes any difference, but she now has 2 drinks in her hand. Then she goes to the dance floor with these 2 drinks. I'm gonna try my best to describe the dancing and the movement, since I didn't get a copy of the video. It's really odd. I think this point is kind of when she's starting to maybe feel the alcohol a little bit. So she's on the dance floor. She's dancing by herself the whole time, which in itself is not weird, but there's a lot of movement. It's very exaggerated. She's all over the place. She's dancing on the dance floor, throughout the bar, like down the aisles, just really exaggerated. And I don't know if security's supposed to keep an eye on that. That's for you guys to determine. I don't know the rules when it comes to that. At about just after midnight, 00:12 hours. At this point, I believe she appears intoxicated. Again, she is away from the bar. She is at the dance floor at this point. Her movements are very exaggerated and slower. She then puts her head, there's a live band and a stage. She puts her head on the stage, like in a resting position like this, almost as if she's like, I don't know, just really intoxicated. And then she comes out of it and goes back to like the smoking area. The last drink she has, so once she's in the smoking area for a little bit, comes back into the establishment about 00:36 hours with a gentleman. He takes her to the bar and orders 3 drinks for them. The concern that I have here is, I guess to me, common sense is 3 drinks. It's not all for him. So while he's ordering those drinks, I'm gonna try to describe this again. She's like behind him, hugging him, lack of a better term, like humping him and kissing all over him and like messing with her hair, just kind of all over the place a little bit. The bartender serves them the 3 drinks. It's, in my opinion, it's kind of done quick. I don't know if he's supposed to observe her and him, or if he's just supposed to observe him when he serves the drinks. The guy was fine. In my opinion, she was kind of hiding behind him, like all over him. So he gives him 3 drinks, a beer for the male, a shot, I don't know if it's a single or double, and then a mixed drink in a small glass. She chugs the shot immediately and then is like, I think, sipping on the mixed drink. He goes in the bathroom at this point. She kind of passes out at the table. I don't know who gets the security's attention, but they come give her a water bottle to drink, and at this point she can't walk on her own and she has to be escorted out of the building. That's about just before 1 o'clock, 00:58 hours, and then she's in her car and security's kind of going in and out of the building checking on her, but she gets, so that she leaves just before 1, and then she crashes about 2, so she was over there for a while. Context for, I guess, BAC. I'm not by any means like expert in BAC, but she has, let's say, 6 drinks total in this incident. She claims that she had maybe 2 drinks before she showed up. I don't believe that. For her BAC to be just under 3, 291 at 2:38 in the morning, that is 2 hours after her last drink, is really difficult with like 5-6 drinks. So I don't know how strong the drinks are, or my guess is she showed up already at 0.15 or something like that. So that's the timeline.
Very good. So what we'll do is we'll give you an opportunity to speak. If you don't mind introducing yourself, we'd appreciate that. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Tim O'Keefe, attorney for the Windbreak. Mike Lebachuk, manager, owner, is accompanying me today and sitting behind me. I appreciate the Officer Golos going through that timeline. And it's somewhat helpful, hopefully. And I just want to reiterate a couple of points that he made going through, because in a situation like this, I see the facts being very important. The evidence, so to speak, being very important. It's not like we're in a criminal court or a court setting where we're putting witnesses up, but this female, who I have no idea what her identity is, or what, I didn't know till he said it, that she was actually charged with anything, other than we knew that she had crashed her vehicle, and that's how we ended up here. But to find a violation of the ordinance and hold the windbreak violating the ordinance, this board or the city commission must find sufficient cause, and you may assess a penalty. The ordinance doesn't say that you have to. But I'll go back to the fact that the facts are important, and some of the facts that I believe are really important here are, one, the windbreak has been around a long time. It's a destination bar, so to speak. There aren't a lot of places you can walk to. It's not in a residential area. And so they're used to dealing with people driving there and trying to help them not drive away. They have cameras, so that helped. And that's what Officer Golos reviewed, was the video after the fact. And they take the security seriously. They, on this particular July, I thought it was July, maybe it was August, they had probably 3 security guards until midnight, and one, not quite sure if he left at midnight, but would have been 2 or 3 security guards checking people as they come in and out, and walking through and doing whatever's necessary, and probably 3 bartenders and a few serving staff. The Windbreak has some good employees. They have all been through their server training. They have years of experience. In fact, they've been one of the few bars in town that are lucky to have long-term bartenders, 7+ years experience. And what was important to us in looking at the video and hearing the officer's factual summary is that even he recognize that when she went through the security, she looked fine. When she went up to the bar for her first drink, it was in a short glass. Mike could tell you they don't over pour. It doesn't do them any good to not have the patrons pay for the alcohol. So she ordered a shot. It was a mixed drink, whiskey and water, and it was in a small glass. She went over to the pool table area with that drink, set it down, and at some point, you can see it in the officer's summary, one of the servers grabbed the glass. We don't even know if it was empty, half full, full at that point. But a few minutes later, she went up and got her second drink. It was in a short glass. It was a whiskey water. And she took that drink at one point out into the smoking area. There's no camera in the smoking area. There is now, but there wasn't then. But she came back in without it. She left the building and went to her car. She came back in, and she again appeared to security to be fine, and to the officer in reviewing the video to be fine. So, you know, we're about 45 minutes in, and another patron in the bar paid for another drink for her. She got that drink, went over by the dance area with it, then another drink was purchased for her by somebody, brought over, so she had the two. She carried those around a while, and even at that point, the officer, I think, would agree she seemed fine. She wasn't spilling them, tripping, falling, or anything. It wasn't until around midnight when we don't even know if she actually drank either of those two drinks that were purchased for her. But she is clearly sipping every once in a while from somebody else's drink. But it was at that point that she started to go downhill. Now, there were probably 100 people in the bar that night. We don't know, didn't count, don't have that count for you. But in this situation, the Windbreak would like you to recognize that they did have adequate staff there. They can't follow around everyone. And so when it did come to the attention of one of the security guards, he went up, took the drinks that were in front of her and took them away, brought her a glass of water, had her sit there, eventually said, you know what, it's time to go, took her outside, tried to get her to take a cab or an Uber. After about a half hour, she said she was, you know, during this half hour between 1 a.m. and 1:34 a.m., she sat in her car. She was belligerent. She refused to tell them if she had an Uber coming or if she was going to take an Uber or any of those things. One of the female staff kept going out to check on her. They were concerned. There was another male individual that seemed sober or not intoxicated, not obviously intoxicated, that was with her a lot of the time. And what we don't know is what else she was doing. We know that she was using a vape pen. We don't know what was in it. I don't know if the officer found that evidence in the crashed car or what it might have contained. We don't know if there were any other, if there was any other alcohol consumption in that over hour that she spent in the parking lot. That's one of the issues. They find a lot of the little Mickey bottles all over the ground the next day when they clean up. So the facts are incomplete. We don't know what she did, you know, when she went out to her car while she was there, but seemed fine. We don't know what she did after they removed her from the establishment. And I think that's important. And, you know, I realize that she crashed, could have really hurt somebody, hurt herself. But even with the officer's factual summary and testimony, we know that when she originally purchased on her own from the bartender those first two drinks, she appeared fine. And the key word in the ordinance is you can't serve somebody who is obviously intoxicated. Somebody could be a .20 and appear fine. A lot of people couldn't, but some people can. And so in this case, what the Windbreak is asking is to recognize that they have adequate staffing, they have adequate training, When they realized she was acting intoxicated, or to them became obviously intoxicated, they took appropriate measures to remove her from the establishment. So our recommendation and request to this board is respectfully to ask that you not find the windbreak in violation of the ordinance. There's no requirement to do so just because someone did become intoxicated there. It does say you may impose a penalty if there is a violation in your opinion. But in this case, we'd ask that you let this one go, so to speak.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So did they track the number of drinks that they served so they knew how many that she purchased herself?
The only way to do that would be to go back and look at the video, and the officer, I think, did a very thorough job of that. She paid in cash for the first two, so she didn't have a tab or an account or a receipt. So the other drinks that she came into contact were delivered to her one was, but the bartender actually made it for her, and she was in front of him. That would have been her third drink. After that, a server brought her one that another gentleman paid for. Right. And then finally, the gentleman took her to the bar when she was standing behind him and bought 3 drinks.
So it's just difficult, especially if they pay in cash. It's just hard to keep track of. It'd be different if she had started a tab and then you could just keep track one by one. Then you would know for sure.
Sure, you might go into the system and say, holy cow, she's had 10 shots so far. So that wasn't the case. And also, more importantly, the way I look at the ordinance, she wasn't appearing to anybody, and not even on the video, intoxicated until around midnight.
Any other questions?
Do either of you recall what night of the week this is, the day?
Can I check my phone?
I thought it was a Saturday, but I could be wrong. Is that right? It's a different date.
Friday.
A Friday night. And I believe Mr. O'Keefe said there were 100 people there. Is that pretty busy for the windbreak, or is that
No.
standard? Not busy?
Not in the summer. That's
Okay.
Summertime, their business is down.
Okay. So it wasn't absolutely like arms to arms
No.
packed in there? Okay. Looking at the videotape, was she more belligerent compared to other people, or was she acting pretty standard in line with what others were in there?
She stood out with her like action. She's not. If you're saying belligerent, like violent or something like that, no, I would describe her more of as a happy, intoxicated person. She's just kind of flailing, and you would have to like physically walk around, watch her do this, or I don't know what the expectation is of staff, but this is consistent for the 3 hours she was there, or especially after the third drink, she's over here and over here, dancing all over the place. Nobody else is doing it. She kind of stood out in the crowd.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just have one question for the free drink that the manager, Brian, gave her, which you explained was in a large glass. And then in the report, it says that she took a couple sips of it and said it was too strong and she didn't drink anymore. But I guess on the videotape, it said that she did continue to drink that. Do we know what that was? Was that straight alcohol, or was that a mixed drink of some kind?
First of all, it wasn't free. Another gentleman paid for it. Brian, or the bartender, went to the table and it was ordered there. He went up to the bar with the female and made it. What Mike would tell you is that it was probably a whiskey, whatever she was drinking before, unless she came up with something else. And sometimes a tall glass like she had is a double, and some people want more mix and order a single and a tall glass. So we're not sure. It wouldn't have been straight booze, though.
I'll follow up on that. So in the bar business, there's standard glasses and tall glasses. According to what the officer saw, this was actually a pint beer glass. Is that correct?
Probably.
It's a 16 ounce.
16, yeah.
Beer glass is 22 ounces.
Is that something a customer can order in your bar as a 16-ounce drink?
Yeah, but it's only got an ounce in it. unless they order a double tall, then it's 2 ounces in a 16-ounce drink instead of 2 ounces in a 12-ounce drink.
And is that standard for people to get drinks in, no matter what the alcohol in, but drinks in a pint glass?
That's standard across the nation. If you want a weaker drink, you order it in a taller glass. Then you get more solution with it, more pop, more water, more mix. In a short glass, you get, I would assume most of you understand this, in a short glass, you have 12 ounces, right? And an ounce and a quarter poured into, what would it be, 6 ounces of mix, is gonna taste very strong, right?
You know, I understand. I bartended for a lot of years. It seems unusual to me that late at night somebody be served a drink. We don't know how many shots were in there. If it was,
I'd also point out, and maybe the officer would agree with me, that I don't know that this female is the most reliable source of facts.
Yeah, I apologize. I was just going after the report that said that she was drinking it and it was too strong, and then she quit drinking it. But apparently on the video, she actually was drinking it. So the point I was trying to make is the fact that she was saying that it was too strong, allegedly. So that's just what I was asking.
I guess I look at the timeline and I look at the observations that she walked into the establishment when she was fine, went out to her car, came back in, she was fine. 11:37, Brian was outside apparently in the smoking area. He's the manager. He bought her a drink. We get to 12:12. She's still dancing, and at this point she looks intoxicated. So she's been there for a while. She doesn't appear intoxicated, and then at whatever 58 is that 1 o'clock in the morning? So roughly 50 minutes later, they quit serving her and are concerned about that. At 12:37, they still served her male companion several drinks and a beer for him. I'm hard pressed to find that in 30 minutes they were serving someone who was obviously over intoxicated. She was appeared by several counts that she looked fine when she walked in. She looked fine when she walked in again. The fact that you're at a .291 by the end of the night tells me that she maybe wasn't getting all of her alcohol from the establishment. And the fact that they took proactive measures to stop her at that point and gave her water. I'm struggling with how in an evening when they gave her 5 cocktails or served 5 cocktails or 6 that they were in violation of that intentionally.
Any other comments or questions? Nancy, you look like you were ready to make a comment. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Thank you. And again, I just call your attention to the ordinance that is brought before you is a violation of the overly intoxicated, obviously intoxicated person. And it is service to a reasonably discernible or evident person of ordinary experience of alcohol to an intoxicated person. So again, that is why it is brought to your attention due to the officer's recitation of the facts as he found them to be on the video.
I guess one of the challenges is, part of it is, I don't believe all the alcohol she consumed was served by them. That's the challenge that, but then, even though she may not have been drinking alcohol from there, she was still at that bar. So it's a challenge because then they almost assume responsibility for things that were out of their control. It's definitely a challenge from the bar perspective.
Well, I look at the fact that there's been 16 violations this year. It should be a concern. In this particular incident, I don't know that they failed.
Any other comments? Any other questions?
well, on my last comment, that some things that the officer told me that concern me that we haven't really touched on, and not exactly sure where they fell in the timeline, but there was a situation with a head on the stage, and then the head on the bar, and then the hanging on to the person buying her the drinks, which I think was the last group. And again, we haven't seen the video, but that, to me, that would stand out as a person that was intoxicated. So I had, you know, she could have gone out and had drinks, but I don't think that totally relieves the bar if there are signs of intoxication to get that next one. That's kind of the whole point. You know, the first defense system is at the door. If somebody walks up and looks intoxicated, no, I'm sorry, you're not coming in. That wasn't the case. But at some point, was there enough visual evidence that this person wasn't acting, was acting extremely intoxicated?
If I could take a point of order to
Sure.
clarify here, excuse me. And the officer can correct me if I'm misstating his report, but I think it was shortly before midnight that she was observed by Officer Golos carrying both drinks to kind of the dance area or the pool area. So she had had 2 short drinks at the bar from 10:45 p.m. until that point. So those drinks were still full. It wasn't until really around midnight or after that she became noticeably to the officer in the video. I don't know. Do you want to dance for us and show us? I don't know how to describe it other than you did either.
To me, the question is, I mean, if you have somebody that's putting your head on you're on the dance floor and she's literally resting her head on the stage, was she served a drink after that? To me, that's the thing.
She wasn't directly. She came up behind the male. I think I'm stating this right. After that, she came up behind the male and they were given 3 drinks. But, you know, I don't think anybody saw her. If any, I guess I'll put it this way. If the security would have seen her laying her head on the dance floor, they would have removed her. When they saw her doing it at the bar, when the male gentleman went to the bathroom, they removed her.
Well, I guess the last question I would have is, I think you have a good point. If it wasn't reasonable for the bartender to know that the drinks she was making for this gentleman at the bar, it sounded like it was a shot and 2 drinks or beer and 2 drinks, whatever, were for her, because certainly if she had walked up to the bar alone at this time in order to drink, we can assume the bar would have, you know, because it is a professional staff, would have said, no, you've had enough, it's time for you to go, because that's kind of when that was determined. So is the responsibility really on the bar, or is it on the individual who bought those drinks, who was not intoxicated? So that becomes supposition. Should the bartender known that? We can't tell that from exactly the way it was. It was described as the gal was behind the guy, kind of hugging him or whatever. So I don't know. You know, it's hard to tell where that responsibility goes.
I think we're very fortunate that she didn't severely injure herself or others. And the whole thing about her going to her car, that's and that gets into whose responsibility is that? So it's not a black and white thing, but I think it's just. But the other side of this isn't the first one where this has happened at the windbreak. That's the other concern for me, and I know that's not what we're talking about, but this has been a consistent thing happening. So that's the other thing that's going on. So it'd be different if this is the only time this has happened, but that's not the case either. Correct?
Well, I don't know the details behind the other 15 or 16. I'm prepared to talk about this particular incident today. And I agree with you, though. I mean, there's no way around it. If there are a certain number of calls, you got to take it serious. And as I stated at the beginning, luckily nobody was hurt.
But just by you making that statement, 15 or 16, I mean,
Again, I don't know what they are. Maybe the chief can
Sure, I can,
give us.
yeah, I can
but
provide you
we're
a little
here
more.
for the hearing today.
A little bit more info. Thank you, sir. I appreciate Sergeant Golos's work on this. As you can imagine, it was a substantial amount of time to review this video and put this report together in a very complex situation. We know that we have been watching this situation at Windbreak for a long time. We've had many meetings with Windbreak staff and trying to provide guidance and suggestions to them about how they could minimize this issue that seems to really center in their establishment. And we talked during that a lot about the culture of the establishment and, you know, what is the culture of serving drinks, et cetera. And so, and they're by far, they're more than double anyone else that has come to our attention. If you look at this incident, and I don't disagree with some of the details being somewhat sketchy, but you look at a couple of things that are done by the staff. At 23:47 from Sergeant Golos's report, the server brings her another drink, a tall drink, paid for by one of the males. The female now has 2 drinks. The bartender should see that. So is that the culture? We give, if you look okay, we're going to give you 2 drinks. We had the discussion about the tall drink, and she indicated to Sergeant Golos that it was so strong she didn't drink it all. I agree, probably doesn't make sense that it's straight liquor, but why would you give someone a mixed drink in such a large glass? And then if you look at the final here at 12:37 a.m., she is obviously impaired, and I would describe Sergeant Golos as a reasonably discernible or evident person of ordinary experience making those observations. And yes, we don't have the benefit of the audio, but as he described her dancing and her movements at the bar while placed behind the individual who was now given 3 more drinks, I think this might be part of the problem we've been talking about. I mean, it's just, here's, I guess for one background that I happen to have here is a July 2nd incident where the gal was part of a bachelorette party. They believe the group had been drinking prior to arriving, but that she got left behind. She was so intoxicated that they finally cut her off and she was kicked out of the bar where officers found her in the parking lot. She puked and urinated all over herself and had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital. We weren't able to get video of that incident to see what happened inside, but this is not the first time we've heard this scenario either. And so I just want to bring that to the board's attention, that this ordinance was constructed because of this issue and because of the difficulties of the prior language, and that a violation can be established with direct and indirect evidence. And so, again, I leave it to your deliberation, but I think some of the other points that have been made relative to that, we know this has been an ongoing problem. Windbreak signed an agreement relative to some other issues, and even while under that agreement, this has occurred. I just wanted to point all of that out for your deliberations. I appreciate the time.
Well, I would just say again, I don't see the female individual who we don't even know who she is. They do, we don't. It's hard for me to believe her. She would say it's too strong. She also said it was she was drugged. Who knows what's true coming out of her mouth? The point is, on this particular situation, they did everything right once they figured out, okay, those drinks might have been for her. When the male went to the bathroom, she started to grab one, and the security came over, took the tall drink away, or the beer, and then sat her down, gave her a glass of water, and then escorted her out. Tried to do what they do with other people that they take outside, get them an Uber, get them a cab. Some people refuse, and you know that is an issue, but there's some things that are out of their control. What wasn't out of their control, they did in the right manner, is my point in this particular case.
I guess when you talk about that, if they won't take an Uber or a cab, to me, I think then you have to call the police. Because I guess that's my only advice to you, because that person can leave your bar and literally kill somebody. And anyway, so that's and I think this, as you know, this is a very serious issue, and you're not going to stay in business. We can't have, when you talk about multiple violations like this, you have a lot to lose. And this is a public safety issue for the city of Fargo. If you have people leaving your bar, getting in cars, you can't have that. So, and I know you're limited to your liability, but if they've been drinking and they get in a car which is where you're located. They have to get in a car. You have to call 911 and tell the police, because if they kill somebody, you're going to lose your business. And so I think this is very serious. And I know we're just talking about this one separate incident, but we've been down this road. The chief and I have met with you, and I'm not sure you are getting the message how serious this is. This is you staying in business or you going out of business and losing your license. That's how serious this is.
Well, from my perspective, they've taken it very serious, and everything I've looked at.
You can't say that. When we've had, this has been going on for like 2 years.
Well, I can say it, and I did say it because I've talked to them about this. They have intervened. They have tried to work with Officer Golos, and I'm sorry, I don't mean any disrespect, but they're really trying to work with him and do those things, and I don't believe they're over pouring or burning drinks like the female indicated. And in this case, I just don't think that's what happened.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, just one comment. I mean, the blood alcohol level was at a point 291. It was at 238. It got up there somehow. And now I don't, in many different bars, and I heard you say the 1.5 ounce shot. I don't know if you guys use measuring cups or anything else like that, like some bars do. There is a difference between what one bartender pours a drink and another one, depending on what you have in what rules you have set up in your establishment. So I don't know, but there is a difference. And if this person is saying that this drink was too strong, if it was maybe that was an over pour. So you can't really necessarily say that one drink equaled this much alcohol in there. If you don't measure it, I don't know if you do or not. Maybe you can help me with that.
Brian's got over 20 years experience.
You want to just tell them that real quick?
Brian was the bartender for her. For one, they don't know her from Adam. They don't know who she is, where she comes from. They've seen her in there. He said he's noticed her like 2 other times. Why would you burn a drink for somebody you don't know? Again, and I'm not saying now Brian's an experienced bartender, so I would say that he knows how to make a pour. We follow our liquor percentages to a T. We run that place like a corporate business. We're not handing out money here. It's not an easy place to make money.
No, I get that. I guess the comment of why would you burn a drink for somebody you don't know, it doesn't sound like a good business practice to me. It doesn't sound like if you go to certain establishments, I won't name them, but they weigh the bottles. They have an inventory system, and every drink they use, I believe the term is a jigger that they use to measure the cocktails. So for you to say that if you know the person that you would burn the drink, I guess I'd be concerned with that.
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, why would you do it for somebody you don't know? Just to clear out even the possibility of, if somebody knows somebody, there is a possibility they will try and burn their drink against my better wishes, right? But not a stranger, I would say is highly, highly, highly unlikely. 0 chance. Just to clear that air. And again, these people have been, at any given time on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there's almost 100 years experience in that bar. More than probably any bar in town. These are veteran bartenders. They're grumpy. They're not the same as these young ones that are having fun, living the life, enjoying their friends. These are people that are there to do a job. They take it serious because it's become their life. Going out and starting a new job when you're 40 years old somewhere else, starting fresh, trying to make the kind of money you do at a bar. So this is very serious to them.
Any other comments or questions? Are we ready for a motion?
Can I just make two?
Yes, sir. Go
quick
ahead.
comments? I have no doubt in this fight. It's my first time here. I like Mike. Mike works for me, no problem. But just to not muddy the facts. I think 2 or 3 different servers served her. I believe we're all adults, and if she went out and decided to drive her car and do what she does, that's on her. I was focusing on her behavior in the bar, nothing to do with the accident, that she was arrested for DUI, what her BAC is, that you need a scientist in here to explain BAC going up and down. I don't know what the expectation is of the business if somebody is flailing around, dancing, being strange, and then resting their head on the stage. I don't. If they saw that, I have no doubt they would have probably not served her anymore. I don't know if it's their expectation to do that or not. And then at the end, I know the gentleman bought the drinks. I'll let you guys decide. If he shows up with her together, he's sitting on the chair, she's behind him, and gets 3 drinks, I think we can all safely assume those are not for him. And she did take the shot immediately from those 3 drinks, and the 2 were still there with her. So when he went to the bathroom.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Are we ready for a motion, or what does the committee prefer? Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? If we don't have a motion, then that is our action. And then I guess, Steve, then I have a question for you. Does that go on to the city commission, or is that the end of, or maybe this is a question for Nancy?
I'll make a motion.
Very good. Go ahead.
First, I want to say something. I made a visit to Mike and his bar, and it is very well run from the office, and he does have an experienced staff. I saw his liquor cost. He was very open. He's been very open with his videos. However, we're in a different world now. It's not just timelines and counting drinks. It is the bar's responsibility, whether this seems fair or not, to observe their customers. And if there are any signs that they're impaired, we live in a world now where marijuana is legal in Minnesota, and these people are driving into the bars. We live in a world of fentanyl and all these other things. Alcohol is part of that. So as much as it hurts me, because I do think Mike runs a strong ship, et cetera, I will make the motion, the suggested motion for the fine.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? If we don't, then I'm going to give up the chair, and then I will make the second. If I can do that, Nancy? And so now we have a motion and a second, so now we have further discussion. And so if you don't, I'm going to follow up my question that I asked originally. If we take action, where does it go? Does it go on to the city commission from here? That's my question for you, Nancy.
And that's a good question. I think, yes, it can, if there is no action taken. If the decision is to not recommend a finding, then it would only be up to, it would go forward if there was an appeal, obviously, from the claimant.
Any further discussion? So are we ready for a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So 3-2, it passes. And so if you can summarize this again, Nancy, so that, will they have the ability to appeal this if they wish to?
Yes, they will.
Does that also go for the Old Broadway? They can also, would they have the opportunity to appeal theirs? If I apologize for not asking that, but if you don't mind.
Any finding of a violation could be appealable to the city commission, yes.
Okay, so that's our action for today, and then you have the opportunity to appeal it if you wish to. Okay, that's it for today. Any other further business? Otherwise, we are adjourned. Thank you.